they can, her new husband can take the land. Because we didn't believe in selling land and you wasn't going to get it from none of us. So who sold them the land? Right? So when you go back and look, you heard Malachi had to correct himself, right? When he said native Moors, then he said natives and Moors. So this is what we was fighting. We was fighting conquistadors, Huguenots, and gentry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They came over as black Jews. They became lightened up in whitewashing the history after the 1600s. This is why when you see a picture of George Washington or Abraham Lincoln, they lighten them up for you to believe that they was something they wasn't.
That's right.
Psychological operations, man games of war. All war is based up on deception. So who's deceiving who? And how does it work?
Hey, it was a case that we talk about the Dred Scott case, right? But it was a case before Dred Scott with this dude named Williams. I can't think of his last name. Garner. I'll think of his last name in a minute. But Abraham Lincoln was representing him. And he had the same type of case as Dred Scott, but he won his case.
They teach our children to arrest their spiritual development at 5 years old. It don't take to the first grade, though. That's why we start being 6-year-old adults over time. Because they're dumbing you down what's using what's called an attrition model. So when we talk about ant people, we talk about Anunnaki. If we read it as energy, we'll get way more information from it if we reject it or accept it as a reality. Mm-hmm. We get more information from it. Because most good lies have a piece of the truth in it. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what makes the best lies. That's where the story of the well-dressed lie comes from. One day the lie came past, caught the truth taking a bath. Mm-hmm. Behind the truth's back, the lie dressed up in the truth's clothes. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And then the lie sprint past trying to escape the truth. And now you got a well-dressed lie being chased by the naked truth.
Let me read this real quick, Rob.
Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Let me read. I should have got oh, give me 1 second, family. Why is it doing this? Okay, here we go. Yeah, academic one. Yeah.
Right. There's a theology. Right? Ours is mythology. My theology. Right? Their theology is the theology of theoretics. It's a theoretical. So they taking what was ours, reprinting it, and they don't really understand it, so it becomes theory study. Theology study of. So they studying the theory of something. Mythology is, I noticed, this man. My theology, my theory of study is to study itself. So they mix it up in the words, and then they turn around and use it to confuse you, putting the blinders on you. Right? Now, when we get to the ant people, we remember infinite realm of possibility. There's cycles on top of cycles on top of cycles. The history has to be rewritten for each cycle. So when you look back on it, that's already been done. You coming into another cycle, we might go into a cycle and have a whole new set of animals that we have never even fathomed in our mind. Where did they come from? They're going to spring forth and generate from our mind over time because it has to change. Well, the ancients discovered that these cycles cause catastrophes at the end. And if you figure out how to have a smooth transition, you can avert catastrophe. And sometimes that includes one cycle may end and they create Shambhala. or Agartha. Because it's the same story when you study the story of Shambhala and Agartha. Agartha, they tell you that the people from Agartha came up during the close of many ages and did the same thing that the so-called ant people did. The term ant came from the idea of the ant people because they said that we act like ants and swarm around our big mama like termites and pester us like bees. So they use those terms to describe what's known as our hive mind or pack mentality. Right? The ant people in the legend, we call them Anasazi, is another name for them. When you look up Anazi, it's both over in what's called the motherland and it's over here as the spider. When you look at their symbolism, it's the spider. But the spider and the ant looks very similar. The Anasazi was one of the root tribes of the Americas. We call them today old Mississippians. Becoming so informed about the cycles that the newly developing people on the land has to be protected from their own ignorance. So you have something like, hey, let's go teach these people how to build structures in the side of the mountain so when the catastrophe come, the earth will protect them. So you go teach it to them. And then you have what's called what's like a Pueblo village. So if you go to study around Colorado, around Pueblo, you'll see they got this place, this village carved in the side of the mountains. The people say they was taught that technology of design from the ant people. Right? All of this stuff is tied together through the weavers of the history, which is the mothers. We used to call them the dark mothers at one time. This is where you get your term Black Madonna reference from. Because she was the dark mother. She had to be a dark mother because she had to have so much stuff in her genetic code. And she becomes the queen of the hive of the ants, the old ancient people. We still here. We got different totem animals. The ant people, totem animal is the ant. And you got different people from different tribes. You got priests whose totem animal is the praying mantis. Right? Then you have people whose totem animal is the raccoon. They start resembling these things as they spiritually evolve because the collective part of the hive mind that they come from is tied through that totem to the frequency of the earth. We all manifesting earth spirits. So we had to go through stages of moving the mind in order for you to see it as a human. And this is why we can communicate with animals if we can tune into our inner self. Mm-hmm. Because we are of the hive, the top of the hive mind. The lower the species, they all got their place on the hive mind. Like you got the insect section. This is where they learn to compartmentalize mammal, reptile, amphibian, what we call the parts of species. All amphibians is not reptilian, right? You got reptilian amphibians, and then you got mammalian amphibian. Amphibian mean they just live, they can go in or out of the water. That's all it means. Terrestrial mean they primarily traverse the land. That's all it means. Aquatic mean they primarily live in the confines of water. That's all it means. So when you put the field of amphibian up, humans fit under that umbrella. But some humans fit under terrestrial. This is where you get your airbender, firebender, waterbenders from. Earthbenders. Learning to control the element that's primarily conducive to who you are. This is why they become part of the zodiac chart. They have to put your, because certain times of the year control the element by which a person's energy manifests. So you see Leo, Like my father, loud, talk loud. Don't care what you think because they the king. Fuck what you talk about. Fuck who you telling. Mentality. And then you have like another fire sign like Aries. Like I hear you talking, Leo, but that shit don't move me. Even though the Aries, the lamb, in nature is a prey animal for a Leo, but on the spirit realm they equals. Fire and fire, right? So now they have to find the balance between the two, and they give you the parable of the lamb and the sheep. And it's telling you about the closing of the age, the closing of the days, what to look for. Right? So he's telling you to look for the day where the lamb can lay down with the lion and not be consumed. That's when the Aries can placate the Leo. Right? But then you gotta wait for the water bearer. All this is in their text that they wrote. It's all ties together to the multiple underground civilizations of the world. And the ones referred to as ant people is the ones that's probably the deepest in the earth now. Because instead of, when they flee danger, they don't move up to the stars, they move down to the center. Right? So it's a different culture, it's a different philosophy and understanding.
What's the connection between the ant people and the Grand Canyon? Because I hear people say that that's one of the places they went when there was a catastrophe. They went underground. They went to the Grand Canyon. You ever heard a connection between them?
Well, you know, I was just telling you about the Pueblo villages carved in the mountains, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, in the Grand Canyon, a lot of the relics were stored in caverns using a similar architectural format, right? Then they built them in different layers at different sides, so where the water would have been level at in the ground at one point, it ain't level there no more. So they built it look like it's just up on the side of the rock,
right?
But it's been there, right? The Grand Canyon, it's like a whole lot of different stuff is going on. So one is Malachi say in the Holy Tablets, he tell you about a meteor that struck where the Grand Canyon is, right? But it wasn't a meteor; it was a missile.
From who?
It was from one of the Anunnaki wars, like 3-4 wars ago. Those were the first places they attacked, and that was the catalyst to the fall of Atlantis. Right? Is the conflict. There was nuclear holocaust several times. So this is why they knew that in order to keep the people in the perpetual state of fear when they started to wake up, keep warning them about nuclear holocaust. And then give them a demonstration on a smaller scale. That stuff that they shot off in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, them was grenades compared to when the earth was bigger, what was being shot off. It was like throwing a grenade over a hill. That wasn't even a big bomb.
Damn. Wow.
One bomb from Arizona scorched the whole Rockies.
Damn.
Right? And you had one bomb in the right outside the Mediterranean, turn the whole Middle East and North Africa into desert. One bomb turned in Acadia, where today is Iran, turned all of that into the Middle Eastern desert. And one bomb in India turned half of India in what we call Pakistan today in the desert. Those were done at different times. They ain't all the same age.
Different ages.
Right? Now, we got to remember, you had pyramid wars that's recorded by the Egyptians.
Right.
Right? You had Anunnaki wars that's recorded by the Sumerians. You got the Manus wars that's recorded by the Hindus. right? And then you got the tail of dragons fighting in the air in almost every culture because that was another name for the ships.
It's a lot of wars, right?
It's been a lot. It's been a lot. The first thing that happened was when the first war was over, it had triggered our presence to other species like the Andromeda beings who had they got search teams out, space investigators or water investigators or whatever you want to call them, but they traveling vessels. And our attention was brought to them by the Anunnaki's first war. That's what made them come down here and trying to hunt the people because of the first war. This is where you get your story of the predator.
Right.
Right? If you go to the second predator, they got him in South Central fighting Danny Glover. But then when you go to the next one, they got him on a crashed ship fighting with Sanaya Latham. Right? You remember that one? Okay, now, that's because they discovered later when they got here that Earth was a matriarchal planet. And the Earth Mother and the Andromeda Mother was able to have a conference and create an agreement. This is when they created the dinosaur. So we go through certain amount of cycles with the dinosaurs. Right? And this is the time they said that the ant people was on the surface of the Earth.
Right, real quick, why did they want to create the Andromedan woman and the Earth woman? Why did they want to create dinosaurs?
They didn't want to create the dinosaurs. They was hunters. The soldiers like the Predator beast.
Yeah.
Right, from the movie Predator. They literally have to train their warriors to always be on top. They a matriarchal civilization, but they males ain't no joke.
Right.
So they had to feed their bloodlust by allowing them to go and test their skills. And this is where you get a lot of our rites of passage comes from this. So when they made the peace treaty, part of it was for Inky to breed dinosaurs. And you breed the dinosaurs so that the Andromeda beings had a training ground for their warriors, and it was for a couple million years. Or 100 million Earth years.
Right. Yeah, man, it's I know for people hearing this information for the first time from you, they're like, "Whoa, what is he talking about?" Let me ask you something that I just looking up, researching things. Somebody mentioned the possibility of Akhenaten being one of these ant people because of his
elongated skull. Because you gotta remember, even though they call them ant people, they were still people, right? When all you gotta do is look at Tupac here and you'll see what they was. It's like drawing caricatures of people. But a lot of those ill-formed pharaohs is not talking about how they actually look, because most of them, how they actually look is the shape of the sarcophagus. Whereas in like Tech Case, they have a lot of drawings that emphasize what we in the hood call hook head ass boy. Right? So they want to exaggerate that so in the future, when we're coming out of the slumber from going through the Yuga cycle, we'll be able to recognize each other by a trait that's been exaggerated in the petroglyphs. So Tutankhamun was from over here. That's who Tupac was.
Yeah, the Boy King. I heard you say that, the Boy King. Huh?
Yeah, it's a prototype. It's a prototype. Just like when we say Crazy Horse, right? They don't think that we talk about one person. We're not talking about one person. Crazy Horse is a way for a tribal chief to get information to another tribal chief by making everybody else think he's batshit crazy. Flavor Flav came out Crazy Horse. ODB came out Crazy Horse.
Right.
Right? It's a couple about right now. They using the Crazy Horse signature energy in order to tell the truth, while everybody else is writing them off as being crazy or they weird or look at you like they did Triple X. He's flipping tribal code.
Mm-hmm.
All of them in the hip hop world is exercising the tribal culture. They made fun of it in the underdog cartoons, where only the big chief understood what the little scout was saying when he was he's supposed to be rapping.
Mm-hmm.
And the chief's supposed to be reading the rap and then tell him what, okay, well, move this way then. It's in the culture. Right. So we have our spokespeople that can't say it outright. They use the Crazy Horse energy to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then you have the dragon energy. They just flat out tell you the best they can from what they see. The dragon energy is just fearlessness to speak, that Malcolm X tongue.
Mm-hmm.
That was dragon tongue. Right? Then you got the Hayoka energy. The highest Hayoka priest on the land right now is Smokey Robinson. And he can put the Hayoka energy to use in poetry and tell stories. This is why that song Tears of the Clown was so important as an identifier for who he was. It's a lot in the music because we couldn't, under the George Washington Challenge, we had to educate ourselves about a condition. But nobody couldn't tell us why we had, that we had to educate ourselves above our condition directly.
Right.
They had to inspire us to do it on our own.
Right.
Most inspiration comes from arts and entertainment. And the only thing more inspiring than that is the love itself.
Mm.
Most artists are drawing so heavily from the heart chakra, they putting the love energy in their art.
Mm. Mm.
And if you've ever been in love before, you can read that energy. And that's not the same as before.
Mm.
And so you be able to read and translate for other people to see tribally what's going on. But Tech was a real energy. He was a Tupac Amaru energy. The boy king. It's the child that's taking the responsibility to take lead of the family. They got a lot of them they call boy chiefs in history that they try to downplay them. They call them the little chiefs and make fun of their stature because they 8-9 years old, but they smarter than everybody in the room.
Mm. Mm.
Right? We didn't arrest our children's development. We inspired it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're trying to stifle it.
And Rod, speaking of the comparison of Tupac and Tutankhamun, I want to get your opinion.
Chief. And now they go back to reestablishing, who's going to be qualified to lead to his level next. They in the middle of that now. That might take them 5 or 10 years following their tradition to actually put their faith in one chief.
Mm.
Right? The Shaka Zulu story, it gives you a loose idea of understanding how they chiefdom work.
Mm.
Those are Inky kids.
Mm.
Their job was supposed to be to protect the Khoisan from the Watusi, the ant people on the land. That's what they look like, Watusi.
Rod, you going the ant people are the Watusi over there?
They look like that.
They look like that. Okay.
So we would say the phenotype.
Right.
Right. The Maasai Mara, the ones who rites of passage used to be for the young boy to go kill a lion and bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what they was, but their intelligence levels is next level. We so ignorant in America that we don't understand how intelligent other people from other cultures are.
Mm.
Because we so used to dealing with each other over here with this arrested development sixth grade mentality.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people get so in their feelings when you try to make them do adult things. They feel some type of way.
Mm-hmm.
They feel persecuted if you try to have them do what an adult's supposed to do when they're supposed to be an adult.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can come up with something that a child's supposed to be doing, they have no problem doing it because they arrested development.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why Carter G wrote Miseducation of the Negro.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't understand what you're looking at. If somebody else is looking at it before you haven't explained it, you have to try to figure out how to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody before you already explained it, when you see it, oh, that's arrested development right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which was one of the names of one of the best hip hop groups of the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the culture is telling you the same story as the intellectuals. We're not telling it in the same lingo. Right? Because we got to talk over the head of them people talking legalese because they talking over our head.
Right.
We got to get behind enemy lines and tell each other what these people doing because we don't know what they doing. So once we put it out there, now when another one of us come along in the future and we put it all together, like, wait a minute, hear what they telling us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is why when you follow the travels of Noble Drew Ali and where he first started in Newark, New Jersey, and you understand how he ended up resettling to Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you realize who it is trying to kill him, right? Because they had papers out back then where they was talking mad greasy about Noble Drew Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Trying to convince the ones that wasn't from their little circle to not like Noble Drew Ali, who was one of the people from the land. So now he got to figure out how to tell one of the chiefs 2-3 generations in the future what he see right now. Right? So then he put his house together. He built his life around the problem. So when you study his house, you can't miss the problem. They look like us, but they ain't us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then you got to pass the baton. Somebody else got to run with it. It's a flea flicker.
Mm-hmm.
One person ain't supposed to hold the ball.
Right.
Especially when they own it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a flea flicker. It's a razzle dazzle play. A whole bunch of chiefs making a whole bunch of moves to confuse the offense or the defense, depending on what side you on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you flipping for the ball, right, you have to know how to pass information in the enemy face. That's why they hire Hopi cold crackers in the military.
Yo, Rob, these ant people that have these underground civilizations, are they connected to? I've heard people say that there's beings that live under. Now I'm about to say Stone Mountain. What's that? Mount Shasta. Are these the same beings that live under Mount Shasta when we talk about the ant people?
No, the ant people look just like Watusis or Masai Mara.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they look like phenotypically. They are our earlier species prototype.
Mm-hmm.
When the genetics upgrade at the close of the cycle, it corrects all the defects from the past genetic pool.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when they get upgraded, this is why it look like it's different species of humans. Because the genome is steady upgrade. It's being programmed in the conversation of shooting resonance and solar radiation that's going to mold the DNA to produce this outcome at the end of it. Right? The human learned how to artificially make changes to what nature did natural by understanding how the DNA set up. So when you talk about the people, like the people in Mount Shasta, you don't get to see a lot of them, and a lot of them look pale faced because they've been adopted pale faced children raising them down there. So a pale face walk up to you and say, "Yeah, I'm from Mount Shasta. I've been living under the earth for 120 years." And you looking at him and you looking like he's 30, and you laughing because you think he's making it up.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been trained by those down there, and they know how to tend to the genome in diet and day to day activity. So they get a different reaction. And but the air people are not necessarily the lead people you see in Mount Shasta, because you don't see too many that look like Watusis.
I know what I heard and what I seen somebody in the chat just say is that's the remnants of ancient Lemuria. Is that right? That's true?
Yeah. It's a book called Sleeping Gods Waking Up, about the people of Lemuria and what they called it, the forgotten gods. They the ones that get all of the bad press from the occult community because they want you to keep away from the potentials that they offer. So they turn them into what we call demons or Goetia and stuff like that. But those are actual activation codes for the blood in order to turn on your primeval galactic self. And if you turn that on, you can't be oppressed on Earth. It's not possible. You're going to figure out a way around it, following the path of least resistance through all things, because you can't stay oppressed. It's like water has to rise to its level. The guys can't stay oppressed.
Right. Any connection between the ant people and Orion? That Orion constellation. I was looking up stuff on that also. There's a connection, they say.
Yeah, because the Orianos, the people that came from Orion to Earth, these are the people that set up what we call the Golden Ones later. But when they first came, they had to interact with the people we call ant people, would look like Watusis. So I keep saying that because I want the people to understand in their mind what these people phenotypically look like. Like if you was to walk past one today, the only way you would know he one of the ant people, you would say to yourself, he looked like Manute Bowl. That's what they look like. Those were ant people, but they live under the ground. And then they got a shorter version of them, but they still look like Manute Bowl.
Yeah, I was seeing if I could pull up the Watusi people real quick. I'll pull that up a little bit. But when you said Manute Bowl, I'm sure if anybody was alive during the early 90s and watched basketball, you know what Rod is talking about. Rod, when we talk about these cataclysms that happen, and we hear about the ice and the water, is this the next cycle, or when this cycle ends, does this one end in fire since the last one ended in water, Rod?
This is the first one in about 4 or 5 closing of the ages that we've been out of the infinity loop. You remember when we crossed to Maherta and I was explaining how we was using that frequency to get out of the infinity loop?
Yeah.
Right. Because this was one of the wars, and they had like a collider like the Swiss Hadron Collider, right? And it was pretty much in the same location, but it was they opened the portal gate using the collider, and then they dumped all of the world's nuclear waste, I guess, bombs to blow between third and fourth dimension. That's why we need sleep, because they collapsed the fourth dimension into the third dimension in order to project an interlocking reality where they can take control of the source codes. Because as long as they kept us in the infinity loop, we couldn't get out of it because we kept missing the Maherta. It's the first time we caught the Maherta and the people understood what it was to the level where it can work.
I remember you was telling me some wild shit. You was like, so many people tried to make it be incarnated down here during the Maherta because it was that important,
and they kept missing it.
They kept missing it.
Yeah, it's the first time somebody caught it, and the information level was sufficient to break through it. Because it's not just one reason why it wasn't happening. It was always because of the infinity loop's nature. It was always out of timing. Just like when you ever see your uncle and them, when they had that little light flashing real fast, trying to set the timing on the old cars.
Mm-hmm.
That's a timing light. Well, one of the things why we kept missing it is because we was always mistiming the events. Because the Maherta had to open at the close of the age and the opening of a new age. And not only that, somebody had to be perceptive enough to recognize the nature of the upside down. Not only that, enough people have to understand the message when they get out about being in the upside down that they can flip right side up in the Maherta, right on time. If the minds is going to, it's going to be a signal come from the center of the universe through the Maherta. They got to get a perfect alignment in order for a source code to get to the earth, the sun, back through the Maherta within a couple of seconds, because it's traveling at the speed of photon light. Like it's almost like instantaneous. It's quantum entanglement communication. But when you have those so many galaxies in the way or universes in the way, the fields between them alter the rate by which it can align. And then so Prime Creator have to create a source opening where every civilized sentient galaxy can hit their own Maherta in order to get codes from the center. So it's all of that was going on at the same time. That's a lot of shit.
It's a lot of shit. You sounded, how you kicking it now sound like some of the stuff I read in the that Yahweh book that I got. I'm pull something up a little later. It actually pull something up a little later. But yo, I think you told me you was like even Christ was trying to make the Maherta or something.
Yeah, that was ISIS.
ISIS, yeah.
Yeah, that was so. All of the great mothers are always trying to get in alignment with source. This is with the source of your religions or any spiritual practice. It's all the matriarchal mother science of trying to stay in line with the universal balance. Right? That's what that alignment is. So every grand matriarch in every cycle in is looking for that alignment so she can be in line with the source. Because once she's in, because the communication is between the grand matriarch of the humans on the planet, who communicates directly with the earth, which is the matriarch that governs the immune system, and we just so happen to be the immune system. So, and also the programmers of the defense system, which is your genome writers. This was all being done by women for eons before men ever stepped foot in the arena. The original gods, the Typhonian gods, are all were feminine. And then later they produced the first masculine, but that was in response to being encountered by the masculine principle leaking from somewhere else. Well, we call it the Anunnaki invasion. Mm-hmm. But it's really just an adding the masculine principle to the genome and to the strata of Earth's memory. You have to create what's called a compelling event to resonate far enough into the future. Mm-hmm. Why do we remember Osiris' name and nobody can tell you who Henry Hubert Harrison was? They can't tell you one thing they seen Osiris do, and the story is about a 8,000-year-old story, according to modern historians. It's about an 8,000-year-old story, and we still remember Osiris, Set, Ra, Isis in this era before we became common knowledge, before Egyptian information started to hit the mainstream. Our people always knew and understood who Osiris was, even if they didn't say it. Because we never stopped using it in there. So some kind of way the name Osiris is so locked in our psyches that we use it when we name children Osiris, never having heard anybody talk about nothing Egyptian. It's the ancient history in the DNA being re-expressed in the present time. All this stuff is part of who we are. That's why you can't trick the ancient ones. We did it so many times. We already know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
How fast it would take you to size up a room? Do you know you're in hostile territory or not?
Right. I wanna shit. Let me see. I wanna read a little bit of this and ask Rod. Once again, shout out to everybody in the chat. Oh, something I wanted to touch on real quick. Somebody in the chat said I was wondering this too, because I know Billy Carson did a video about Turkey, the country Turkey. Mm-hmm. And they want to know, are the ant people the same as the ones who lived in the underground cities of Turkey?
No, those are different. Those were a different phenotype.
Okay.
But remember, the Turks are the Ottomans. Mm-hmm. Remember that.
Mm. All right. I'm gonna get to this a little later. I'm gonna get to that a little later. But yo, so wow. I mean, yeah, this whole ant thing. So Rod, the Hopi that we see today, are they the same? Are these the same people who?
No.
So all right. So explain that, please.
Most of the Hopi, if they don't look like more like you, Rich, yeah, even more like you than me, they not original Hopi. The original Hopi was like your facial structure. But their skin color was much darker. And they were the offshoot of the Olmec people.
Okay, that's what I was about to ask. So the Hopi that we hear about in all these prophecies were offshoot of the Olmec people.
But all of the tribes, when we say Olmec, I'm still talking about old Mississippian original bloodlines. When we say Aztec, Inca, Maya, I'm still talking about original bloodlines of the old Mississippians.
Right.
Now, in the North, Mississippi is the bloodline of the land, and all people, whether they was in East or West, came from this stock. All of your original tribes came from what's called the Mississippian root stock of Americans. And in South America, it's the Amazonian root stock.
Right.
When they call them the women Amazonia, they talking about the Califia queens, but they using the Amazon so that you won't equate them with the Mississippi. But you had the Amazon North and the Amazon South when they first started referring to the two major rivers of the land. Right? The tribes called it the Mississippi. They wanted to call it the Amazon. They wanted to Latinize it. Remember, that we was fighting Spain before the French in the Louisiana territory. So we took a lot of our stuff and turned it around and used it against us. Exploit our ignorance, and we can't put the stories back together.
So the people we see today, where are they from?
In
the people we see today that say they're descendants of the Hopi, they don't look like us. They look like
right. They are descendants of immigrants. Well, tribes over here were bringing immigrants in, and you can go to Mexico. They have what's called the Chinese Road. We was doing trade with China. In the Hopi's culture, they created the ceremonial tribe that you see today to just be somebody that honors the culture into the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these ceremonial, this is why they all got that Asian look.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the ones that the Moors brought over here with them as servants and warriors, soldiers, what they was called, soldiers of fortune.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the ones that's here now are older than the invasion of Europe, right? But they don't go back into the antiquity as Hopi. They got a limit. They only been here like 1,300 years as Hopi.
Mm-hmm.
But the original Hopi was a shoot off for the old Mississippian tribes.
Mm-hmm.
You never heard me say that we got a contract with the Asians, and that's why we all carry the name Lee in the South.
Yes, you have said that before. Yeah.
This is part of that. There's more to it, and to like be able to explain it, you have to know a certain amount of already exhumed history. You have to have seen what I'm talking about on the map for it to make sense to you. But a lot of these tribes that we want to beat up on, some of them, they didn't take sides with the colonizers. And so they was entrusted with parts of the culture for us to restudy them at the end.
Mm.
That's what your boarding schools was for, to teach them the culture so that they could carry it into the future. But see, they don't have enough sense to know who they is because we didn't know who we was.
Mm.
They erased all our real names. About 90% of the tribal names that we refer to ourselves now are all exonyms. They took them. That's why you have to self-identify. Because if you don't use your rights, you have to identify yourself and fuck what somebody else say.
Mm-hmm. Rod, I'm wondering, like you're so tapped into this information. I'm wondering why you don't get like visits, or why these, you talked about so much on this channel. You don't get like visits or telepathic communication from these beings that you know so much about, being that you're already partially on their resonance field because you know the history of them and you know they exist. You don't get contacted by, beings, right?
I'm not to be fucked with. They don't like me.
Not in a bad way. I'm just saying, like,
No. The good ones don't like me either.
well, yeah,
My history is defender of the earth.
that's your history.
That's why I'm here.
Defender of the earth.
And just because they good beings don't mean they was always coming with good intentions to the earth.
Mm.
Right? People need stuff from other people.
Mm.
And somebody got to be like, enough is enough. What if another planet came and said, hey, can we get a little bit of y'all water? We say, yeah, and they take it all. And we die of thirst. Because nobody knew when to draw the line. When to say enough is enough.
Mm.
Right? That's why you have to conjure certain people up in order to see them. I'm one of them people. Right? So when I'm telling them certain stuff, I have to be able to show what I'm talking about. And that's why I had to read so many books so I can have references so it don't look like I'm just pulling it out, out my toes.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see, I can show you, I ain't the only one know this information.
Mm-hmm.
This person knows, this person knows. I see all of these people, and you start reading their stuff, and then you realize all the stuff I had to read. You be like, God damn. Because I got to tell you who telling us the story. Look, if I come out and tell us how our old tribal ways are, and I can't tell you how we got here, you won't never understand me enough for us to be effective. But if I know the old tribal ways, and then I can follow the tribal patterns around the stories that we were traditionally told, right? And then I can say, wait a minute, this ain't our story. So what was this person that's telling the story want me to believe about us if this ain't our story? Now he's putting in opinions Today you would call it cracking propaganda as a skill. But most of the historical records is cliff notes to bullshit. Like there's no, you don't even remember your whole life, and now you got to keep track of history, right? So when you're going through this, I found a book today, some books today. I was like, man, why I ain't never heard of this book before? All this stuff I read, I never heard of this book. I never heard of this author, right? And then this thing, and the book was written in 1970. One of them. So I'm thinking like I never heard of this book, and it's a hot commodity that hard to get that costs like $1,000.
Shit.
You know, I'm like, when I see stuff like that, it just allows me to recall that because of you shift timelines, stuff come into review.
Right.
That identifies the shift in the timeline from where you were to where you're going. And little stuff like what we're discussing now, some people going to start remembering stuff about their own life or even past lives just because we discussed enough to connect the dots for them in places they had blanks. Right? So imagine having the outline of a picture, but you don't got no details yet. Right? Along comes the artist and sees the detail that goes in the middle of the lines. And so they detail it for you. Vivid view now. Black and white becomes color.
I want to read something. I want to read something real quick. So this is this is from this book I show occasionally. This Yahweh book. Rod had me get it. We was talking about Yahweh on the phone one day, and Rod was telling me about this book, The Keys of Enoch. What did it say? The Book of Knowledge. And it says Yahweh in the front. Let me read this to you, Rod. Let me ask for a Rod Hayes breakdown. I need a Rod Hayes breakdown. The key to future luminaries and the key to the divine light is the vehicle of time translation. The vehicle of vehicles is Merkaba, which creates, controls, and has the ability to speak through electromagnetic sinks. Merkaba revolves and goes and rises under the heaven or brightness of the next universe, and its course goes over the earth with the light of its rays incessantly into myriads of universes within the ever unfolding eternity. Sounds so beautiful the way he wrote that, right?
Poetry to it. Poetry to the science.
Yeah, very poetic. How does the vehicle speak to us? Through light consciousness forms by means of polarized energy, namely by energizing the cosmic pulsations to pierce the Earth's electromagnetic field. The message it brings speaks of the great infinite way and our role in the many heavens of creation. Thus, in its flight through the many heavens, Merkaba, the light energy vehicle, through rotational circumversion, creates the overlap between various universes of time and space, thereby creating threshold configurations. Consequently, by creating threshold configurations with its power, Merkaba allows one level of intelligence to directly connect with a series of other intelligences. We need a Rod Hayes breakdown. Can you help us understand what the hell that just said, Rod Hayes? Please.
Okay, so when he's talking about the Merkaba, he's talking about the light body that is your auric field. The space around you to a certain degree is your energy field. This is just your Merkaba. But he's talking about it in the sense of metaphysics, where your Merkaba can do things your physical body can't do. And to be absorbed into your mind state, into the Merkaba, you can communicate with other streams of information. That's why when you look up Merkaba, sometimes it show a man in the middle of the Merkaba double stack pyramid, and then they'll show a refraction of light coming out, breaking the light up from the prism, right? But it's the other way around. We on the inside of the prism, and the light is breaking up within us. Instead of coming together, we have to unify the inner light in order to align with the outer light. Right? So we're looking at two particular points in space between a quantum field of darkness. Right? So how long can you hold the vision of the light before you fade into the darkness? Right? So imagine having a flashlight and walking through a dark tunnel. You can follow the light in front of you, but you still can't see nothing behind you because you've already burned that down. It don't exist no more. But when you turn around and put the light on it, you just brought the past back to life. Right? So that's the analogy of being in that tunnel.
Hey, Rod, what can you tell me? We mentioned the Grand Canyon a little earlier. We talk about different areas. What can you tell me, Rod? Since we're talking about the ant people, about we're talking about the Hopi, so we're talking about the Hopi, Sedona, Arizona. Now, white folks, they talk about Sedona like it is the most spiritual place on the face of the earth. You always hear them talk about Sedona. You always see them got events out there. Shout out to all the white folks and everybody who do the events in Sedona. I heard it be popping out there, never been out there. But what can you tell us about Sedona, Arizona?
Sedona was it's an ancient ritual site from Atlantis era. In the energies of the ley line and the crystals that naturally form there makes it a place where you can see into it thins the veil of reality, and then it gives you certain frequencies to activate your higher energy fields, which is in 3D is euphoric. It's the bliss state. It's easier to attain it in Sedona than it is in a lot of places because of the long-term use of the ancients that dwelled there. It's already got the channel open. You just got to get in the wavelength in order to reap the benefits of somebody thousands of years ago did already.
Are we supposed to, Rod? Because I just asked you about the Hopi, and you were telling me how the ones we see today aren't the Hopi that came up with this prophecy. Let's just say, yourself, myself, others of like consciousness in this country. Are we supposed to go to different areas of the world and activate certain grids or certain ley lines or certain places? Like what would happen if Rod Hayes was in Sedona? Then Rod Hayes hit up Mount Shasta. Then Rod Hayes hit up Mexico. Then, you know what I'm saying? Like, what would that, is that part of our purpose, Rod, you think?
It depends on where you at in the process. Because it's a time where, my travels had to be, in this lifetime, had to be primarily east of the Mississippi River. Right? Because of my bloodline birthright territory. I already understood where what we call Amaru land, which was Tupac territory, which stretched from Alaska going into South America on the Pacific coast. And then I had to know anything that come across the Appalachians, I had to address that. Right? So when it comes in for, like now at the close of the age, if I follow the tribal redemption process and put everything in the public domain, and I gotta identify a certain amount of chiefs to the people, and you can tell they are some of this stuff. Most of this stuff is done. Right now, we just trying to open the eyes of the last few remaining that's waking up and letting them land on their feet. Because a lot of us landed, like I landed on my neck. Somebody else might have landed on their ass, somebody on their knees. We wanted these next ones, the next final wave, to at least be able to have the opportunity to land on their feet.
Right, right.
Babies got it now, they ain't trouble.
Yo, Rod, so since we're in such an important time right now, the Great Reset, a lot of people call it, and we got things like, you know, the Harvard scientists, researchers are talking about, they coming up with images of Kanye West and say this is how Mansa Musa looked. Is it possible when we think of all the greats, these worldly rulers, let's say Alexander the Great, you mentioned Shaka Zulu, Mansa Musa, all of these Akhenaten, is it possible all of them are back on Earth right now in another body? Because all of them, like, it's like the All-Star, you know, like the All-Star game in the NBA, all the greats, Jordan, Magic, Bird, everybody plays at the same time. Is everybody playing at the same time right now, Rod? All the greats that ever existed.
Most of them, because some of them was the same person more than once, but most of them are all here. But which energy field did they come in their original form, or did they create a new form altogether? But for the most part, the greatest spirits, souls that walk the earth, like Joan of Arc, she got as this one chick. She got an Ascension show on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's she was Joan of Arc in France back then. And when I seen it, I started laughing. Because they told us that they put Joan of Arc to death, and I distinctly remember what they did with her. They switched her out and gave her a ranch to live on with her consort happily ever after. And then they told the public that she died. If it wasn't for the Templars, I wouldn't have remembered.
I want to give me, we're going to take a couple of questions from the chat. Give me some questions in the chat for my brother Rod. Hey, shout out to everybody. We got a lot of people in the chat. Shout out to all of y'all. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thank you for everybody who sent the a super chat. Appreciate it.